If you're a fan of ACDC, I think you'll like this video. And trying to imagine somebody who's not a fan of ACDC. And that's kind of the topic of this little video that I wanted to do. Some time ago, I don't know when it was. It was a long time ago. I was watching an interview with Brian Johnson. Somebody's talking to him. And they made this comment about how AC/DC was the band of the people, or the people's band. And I'd never heard that before, but I've thought about that a lot since. About how their music has this really interesting universal appeal. And what is it? You know, you look at what they do and really at its core, it is just really basic, simple, easy to get rock and roll. It's not super complicated. There's not a lot to it. It has a great beat. It has a great guitar hook. It has cool vocals, and it just has that thing, whatever that thing is. And it's amazing. They're one of those unique bands that, I mean, they haven't had a song, a real noteworthy song that's reached the masses for what, a few decades? And yet today, they could probably go to almost any city in the world and fill up an arena, if not a stadium. They're just there's just something about them. And it's really interesting when you look back at the trajectory of their career, because Back in Black, which came out in 1980, is just one of it is so great. It is such a great album. I mean, front to back, start to finish, everything on there is great. And not only is every song great, there are several songs on there that are epically great. Like they really, really make a mark. And not the least of which is You Shook Me All Night Long, then Back in Black and Hell's Bells. I mean, these things were incredible. And then AC/DC, putting that out in 1980, had the daunting task of following up after such an incredible album. And it's interesting when you look at what had happened, because they put out Highway to Hell, which that song is one of the greatest rock and roll anthems ever created. It's just like this perfect rock and roll song. Sing along with it, this raw energy, this great guitar hook, this awesome guitar sound. And then of course, the story in February of 1980, Bon Scott died. And it's so interesting because they had the funeral for Bon Scott at the beginning of March. And then instantly, they were looking for new singers. And it was they started working on Back in Black within a month, after finding Brian Johnson. And so April, they were recording Back in Black. And then Back in Black itself came out in July of 1980. And then the album Back in Black sold. It is today one of the biggest selling albums of all time. It just was that big. So again, as I said a minute ago, they had this daunting task of what now? How do you follow up an album that is that epic, an album that had such a massive impact on music? I mean, songs that even to this day, go to a karaoke night anywhere in the world this weekend, and somebody's going to be singing "You Shook Me All Night Long." It's that important. So anyway, so then they went into the studio, and then they recorded this. And this was released then in November of 1981, next year. And For Those About to Rock, if you're not watching and just listening to it, they put out For Those About to Rock. And the Back in Black cover was so classy. It was just that black, and it looked actually a similar organization to this one. And I loved the simplicity of this album cover too. And they even have the text and everything embossed, which is kind of cool. The simplicity of the back is kind of awesome. And then on the inside, they have a picture of the band in concert now with Brian Johnson as the singer. And anyway, the song For Those About to Rock is as good as anything they ever did. The way the guitar starts out, and then the way it builds, and the Brian Johnson's voice. I mean, the whole thing. And then this album, although it wasn't as good as Back in Black, it was amazing. So the reason I'm talking about this today is I found what we do a lot on this channel is we read these old newspaper articles about, that came out at the time. And this article is from the Ashbury Park Press, December 20th, 1981. This is basically a month, almost exactly a month after For Those About to Rock came out. And what I liked about this little article, it's very short, but they spend just a minute kind of getting to the heart of that thing that I talked about at the beginning, where it's kind of like the people's band. What is it about these guys that there's something about it that just has this universal appeal? And so I'm just going to share this with you. And as you listen to this, think about this idea, especially if you know ACDC, and most people know ACDC music. I mean, they had so many hits and they had so many great songs. Think about this and think about your opinion about what it is that makes them really this idea of the people's band and why their music has such universal appeal. Okay, so the picture at the top is kind of hard to make out. It's newsprint, and what it is you see the guy. It's on stage and the kind of spotlights, and you kind of see the silhouettes. And so the title of the article is Australian Quintet at Top of Rock World. On their very first album, ACDC sang It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll. Okay, ACDC enthusiasts will go, what? That's not technically accurate, but we'll go with it. The first international release of High Voltage, but anyway, just go with it. All right. So it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. After 7 years of creating some of the most infectious, wall-shaking rock anthems of all time, this Australian heavy metal quintet now finds itself at the very top of the rock and roll world. With its last album, Back in Black, having sold more than 8 million copies, and its latest, For Those About to Rock, We Salute You, selling at a faster rate, guitarists Angus and Malcolm Young, vocalist Brian Johnson, bassist Cliff Williams, and drummer Phil Rudd have now solidified their position as one of the most popular and successful bands in rock history. Quote, "We view rock and roll as a common denominator for people," Johnson said. "We're just out there on stage trying to have a good time and hoping that everybody who's listening is enjoying it too. Everybody should be able to get into what we play because our music really comes from the heart," he said. Okay. The success the band is now enjoying has in fact come only after 7 years of dues paying and hard work for AC/DC. Such albums as Let There Be Rock and Powerage helped the band establish its reputation as one of the hardest rocking bands around, but it wasn't until the release of Back in Black in 1979, by the way, that's incorrect. It came out in July of 1980, but anyway, we'll just go with that. In 1978, that AC/DC emerged as true rock and roll superstars. Back in Black was a true rock phenomenon, an album that without the benefit of a major AM radio hit, soared to the top of the sales charts and stayed there. On songs such as You Shook Me All Night Long and Hell's Bells, the band played with a raw energy and passion. Its ability to mix Angus Young's guitar riffs with raunchy, humorous lyrics gained acceptance of metal fans and increased AC/DC's popularity. And that's interesting to hear them say that about humorous lyrics, because a lot of their stuff was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But then again, this is probably part of the appeal that made them what I was mentioning a minute ago, kind of the people's band. That this whole idea, you often hear people talk about bands that take themselves way too seriously. And these guys, although it was just this great music, it was also what rock music should be. It was just fun. It was fun. The beat was great. You felt like moving when you listened to it, and you didn't have to think really hard. You didn't have to like ponder the lyrics. It was just fun, awesome stuff. Okay. The key to AC/DC success, and this is the part that, like I said, this is the stuff I wanted you to listen to and think about. The key to AC/DC success has been its ability to create a musical atmosphere that is intense yet jovial. Unlike so many other hard rock acts that seem more interested in chains, bikes, and leather than with making music, AC/DC has never relied on an image that's particularly menacing or arrogant. And as a matter of fact, their image is, Brian Johnson looks like a guy that just walked in off the street, and Angus Young walks around in that schoolboy outfit, which is kind of hysterical. And so it wasn't that. They were just normal guys that seemed kind of having fun. Let's see, rather it is chosen to exudes barroom charm. Sorry, they put an S in it. Rather it is chosen to exude barroom charm that serve to break down the normal barriers that exist between a band and its followers. Its approach has allowed it to become the ultimate people's band. All 8 albums in AC/DC's catalog have become gold or platinum hits. We just play our music, Young said. We never really think about how the people will accept it. Our first priority has always been to please ourselves, he said. If other people like what we do, that's fine. If they don't, that's tough, unquote. Never has the band's style been more evident than on For Those About to Rock, We Salute You, an album that starts AC/DC's ultimate display of heavy metal thunder. From the anthem-like power of the title cut, and again, For Those About to Rock, We Salute You, that song, the opening riff on that guitar, and then the way that kick drum comes in, I think as I recall, it's the kick drum and the ride cymbal just hit at the same time. And then the beat flop. I mean, it's so cool when it starts. Oh my God. Yeah, it's such a great tune. It has almost the perfect buildup. It starts off with this energy, and you can feel the intensity just growing and growing. It's a little bit like Hell's Bells does. And you can feel this kind of tension growing, and it grows and it grows, and then it's just boom. It's so, man. I mean, it's so great. Okay, sorry. From the anthem-like power of the title cut, complete with the booming cannons, to the riff-oriented rhythms of COD, the band's new album sold more than 1 million copies during its first week. And of course it did, because Back in Black was so big that even if this album had been terrible, it would have sold 1 million copies in the first week just on anticipation alone. There's a lot of bands where that happens. They have some huge, wildly successful album. The next one comes out, it just sells no matter what. But in this case, it was actually really, really good. Okay. Quote, we're very pleased with the album because I think it shows some of our growth as musicians. No album continues in the exact musical vein as the one before, he added, but I think it's safe to say that anyone who liked Back in Black will like For Those About to Rock as well. And that's the end of the article. But there's something important about that. Anybody that liked Back in Black is going to like this. It's not exactly the same, but it's the same enough that if you got that, you'll get this. And when you listen again to all of their music, this included, at its core, it was very, very simple, easy to get rock and roll. So what I'd really like to get your feedback on, having listened to this, because they reference it, this is why I wanted to bring this up, because I heard that a long, long time ago, the People's Band, and I was just, as I do research for this channel, I was reading this article and I saw, there it is, the People's Band. And I thought this, and it's kind of a common thing. It wasn't, when I heard it, wasn't the first time it had been said. And it is kind of a known thing. It was just the first time that I had heard it. What is it that makes them the People's Band? as far as you from where you're coming from? What do you think? What is the formula? What is it about them that has put them in a position that they, again, here they are after Back in Black, which was their biggest selling album. Here we are 44 years later, and they can still pack an arena, pack a stadium, almost anywhere they go, really on the strength of that stuff that they were doing back then. It's amazing thing to think about. So anyway, I'd love to get your feedback. Of course, please follow the channel, like the video. If you know other people that are into this stuff, please share the video with them. And I'd love to get your comments on this stuff as well. And so with that, have yourself a fantastic day.